Let's look at Philip Ingram, MBE, a far more serious man than that. Former senior military intelligence officer. Philip, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Big story on the front pages this morning about this Chinese spy that seems to have been an advisor to Prince Andrew. I know we're going to talk about other things as well, but I just wanted to get your feel for this. The supposedly secret agent has been banned from this country on security grounds following an MI5 probe. But he seems to have been, you know, able to get very close to Prince Andrew, which is a bit unusual, isn't it?
He did. It's unusual, but I'm not surprised. You know, and that was a business deal that Prince Andrew was setting up. It shows that the MI5 were keeping a very close eye on those that were associating with him and with other influencers. At the same time, the same year, we have to remember that's the year that MI5 called out the Chinese solicitor Christine Lee for her close relationship with Barry Gardner, a Labour MP, and donation of over £400,000 to his office over a number of years. So MI5 were focusing on potential threats to influencers, and Prince Andrew fell into their snare. This is something that I'm not surprised at them trying.
It's a bit worrying, though, isn't it, that Prince Andrew's that easy to get to? Because, I mean, he may not be particularly influential in the royal family or even in sort of, you know, government circles, but he's obviously a guy who people from other countries would like to be able to access in terms of what they think he can do.
Well, he's quite an arrogant character. He puts himself out quite a bit, and therefore, he associates with, as we've seen before, unsavoury characters. The Chinese individuals, this individual won't have come across as an unsavoury character. He'll have come across as a credible character. And I know this from personal experience because the Chinese intelligence tried to recruit me in 2017.
Yes.
And their approach was a business approach. It was a perfectly credible approach. It's just the fact that I used to run counterintelligence operations across Northwest Europe that I got suspicious and decided to play with the individual a little bit just to see if what they were saying was actually genuine. It wasn't. But most people would have fallen for it, and Prince Andrew would fall into that most people bracket.
Yes, because he's not terribly bright, is he? I mean, would you call that sort of soft spying, if you like? I mean, it's not particularly, it doesn't appear on the surface anyway to be particularly dangerous. It's just sort of about garnering friends and people who might have conversations, if you like.
Well, that's where the majority of espionage happens, and it's more than that. It's the influence that Prince Andrew has from an economic perspective, and the Chinese are driven by three things: economics, economics, and economics. And Prince Andrew's little black book of contacts to get this individual into the right parties, the right places, to look at people that could be exploited, to get the right sort of information, to look at people who can be compromised in different ways is phenomenal, and therefore he'd have been considered a very high-value target.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about another story. Britain under pressure to raise its defence spending to 3% of GDP. NATO are worried that member states are not investing enough to prevent war with Russia. There was a story yesterday as well, Philip, which I'm sure you saw on the front page of the Times, in which, banks were being urged to kind of invest more in defence companies and were being urged to be less woke and stop, like, boycotting, weapons manufacturers, missile manufacturers. Is that the state we are currently in?
Oh, definitely, and it's something that it's good to hear Mark Rutte, the new Secretary-General of NATO, coming out with this statement. I think he's done it for a couple of reasons. The one reason, the threat has increased and increased dramatically. The second reason is anticipation of what Donald Trump's going to do when he comes in, because I think he's going to turn around and try and force NATO members to up their contributions from the mandated 2% of GDP that not every NATO member does at the moment, up to potentially 2.5, or I would suggest 3% of GDP. Mark Rutte stopped at giving an actual figure, but we need to spend more. And from an economic perspective, and this ties in with the statement out to the banks from the government and investors. Investing in defence companies is a good thing because it invests in companies that are within our country. We tend not to send too many defence contracts outside, and that means jobs. That means a service industry increase. That means more taxpayers' revenue coming in. It makes good economic sense.
Yeah, it does. But also, I mean, in the world in which we now live, we don't really know what's going to happen in Syria. We've got lots of conversations going on about Ukraine still. Donald Trump's coming in January. I mean, if you're running the Department of Defence right now as a sort of civil servant as opposed to a politician, what are you actually preparing for? What are you thinking?
Well, there are three major conflicts around the world. We've got Ukraine, Russia, we've got the Middle East falling apart even more, and we've got increased aggression with China. Now the UK, we're a permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations. We are the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. We rely on the economies of different countries working perfectly from Southeast Asia the whole way through the Middle East, through the Gulf states, up into the North Atlantic. And America at the moment, everyone is looking to America to take responsibility to police all of it. That just does not make sense, and Donald Trump's not going to allow that to happen. So if I was a civil servant in the MOD, I'd be going, we need to step up. If we want to keep a close relationship with America, we need to start to take leadership again in Europe and try and help Mark Rutte push this message out to European NATO members, saying increase your defence. We will take greater responsibility for the war in Ukraine and let America concentrate on Southeast Asia.
Yeah, Philip, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Philip Ingram, NBE, former senior military intelligence officer.